Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome to episode 146 of Nerdpod Generations. As always, I am one of your illustrious hosts, Steve Taylor, along with the lovely Al Judson. Hello, sir.
Hello, friends and enemies.
And just to warn you all ahead of time, we are doing a remote call today because there was potential horrible weather that blew over faster than we thought it would, but we already had this set up, and so we thought, screw it, we're just going to do it.
Yeah, it was like, we've already come this far.
And I don't even know if I want to say this, but this is already try 2. we're going to see if try 2 goes over a little better than try 1.
One might call it try 2.5.
Yeah, it might be a 2.5, but you know what? We're trying something a little different, and I so far have high hopes because I can see you clear, everything. It looks a little clearer. I can hear you clearer. I did a test on Audacity when we were offline, and my audio sounds great, so I'm hoping everything is awesome.
This will be good. This will be good. It is very funny that in our moment of need, we had to reach out to Apple, the almighty Apple, and be like, "Hey, can you lend us a hand?"
They're not perfect, but when it comes to shit like this, they do kind of know what they're doing, and it drives me
this
nuts.
is what the Fat 32 is for, right? This is what you get out of it.
Exactly. So, folks, once again, this is episode 146 of Nerdpod Generations, meaning there are 145 previous gold episodes, so please go to Spotify.com or Apple Podcasts. Look us up. Make sure you subscribe to our podcast so you can get notified every time a new show goes up. If you want to know a little more about us, go to nerdpodgen, nerdpodgen.com. There are links to pretty much every podcast. There's links to our YouTube channel, Nerdpod Generations on YouTube. There's also some links to different side projects Al and I do, so you can kind of get a little understanding of us personally. But please, give a like, give a listen, give a subscribe, let us know what you think. And in 2 weeks, we are doing one of our favorite segments, which is called Watch and Review, where we go to the movies, watch a brand new movie, come right back and do a show so it's fresh in our brains. And it is the much anticipated Deadpool and Wolverine. So fingers crossed, folks.
Is it anticipated? Is it fear? I can't tell anymore. This modern life has made me numb to so many things.
I do have faith in Ryan Reynolds. I hate to say it, but I have faith in Ryan Reynolds that he will do this.
I have faith in Kevin Feige that he thinks he knows better.
True.
That's my thing.
I'm wondering if Bob Iger at any point, with everything going on with Star Wars and with Marvel tanking, is just like, dude, you gotta listen to other people.
You gotta bring in other minds because this is not working.
No, it is not working. So, folks, we do like to start every episode with a little segment we like to refer to as Watch, Play, Read. And this week we are going to be starting with Mr. Al Judson.
I have a few things I want to jump, a few lily pads to hop. I do want to get to some trailers before the end of the segment, so just to warn the friends and enemies out there to stick around for that. But I have been going through, I needed a happy place. I needed something nice, and Vudu was selling. They had a deal on DC animated movies, so I've been just bathing in that jacuzzi for a few days now.
Nice.
Because the Max is getting rid of them. Because why not? Because fuck you guys, I guess.
You know what, though? That doesn't make me sad because I have bought a ton of them digitally. And now I'm like, well, at least I can, make my money back by having it.
Well, it's so funny because when the sale happened a week after the Max raised their rates again, I was ready to just be like, I don't need the Max anymore. You know what? You guys are getting rid of the stuff that I like, and you're charging me more without having the stuff that I want. You're gone. You're done. And then that night, my parents texted me and they were like, "Hey, what's the HBO login?"
Oh, no.
I was like, oh, other people are still using it. All right. Well, no, you know what? It's fine. It's fine. But I have them in my own library now. I can watch them as I like. I'm not going to go over all of them, but I did want to touch on a few that I hadn't really talked about previously. So first and foremost, I watched Death in the Family with all the various interactive bits without the interactive pieces. So basically, for anybody who doesn't know, Death in the Family is one of the showcase ones. So they have these like 20-minute vignettes that make up a full piece. For Death in the Family, it's an interactive showcase. So depending on what you do, it'll change the movie. It doesn't work on HBO Max. So the one time I watched it, I was just like, this is just a Red Hood clip show. This is just Under the Red Hood, but as a clip show. Why am I wasting my time with this? So I finally got the chance to go through, and I couldn't play the movie like you would on you can only do it on the Blu-ray and DVD.
Okay.
Which is silly.
That is very silly.
But on Vudu, they have it as alternate endings, quote unquote alternate endings. So I got to sit down and watch all of those, which was something that I've been really wanting to do for a while because I love Under the Red Hood.
Okay.
It's probably one of my favorite of the DC animated movies. It just hits so hard, especially compared to what Marvel was doing at the time, because it came out in like 2010, I want to say 2010,
which is kind of crazy.
Something like that.
It's been that long.
But this is really interesting because it goes through a bunch of different iterations of what could have happened in that story. And it also expands on the world of Under the Red Hood. So it turns out Under the Red Hood takes place after the Killing Joke in this universe.
Oh, interesting.
It's not a thing in Under the Red Hood because Barbara Gordon's not in that.
Yeah.
It's never referenced, it's never talked about. But in this, they are very clearly being like, no, this happened after the events of that night.
Oh, interesting.
And so it actually calls on a bunch of different Batman histories and pieces. So you get like Zuranar Batman is here. You get the Killing Joke in a few different forms. You get Hush. You get a whole ton of different things. And it's so interesting to watch because it's in part right from a movie that I love. But also just, I love watching these Elseworld like one takes that are just like these quick, hot one takes. And it really makes What If look bad.
That's not hard to do.
Because they have about as much time and they tell a much better story and really delve into the idea of an Elseworld story where the things happen just a little differently. So that was fun to watch finally. I did want to give a quick shout out to Constantine and the House of Mystery, which is another DC showcase that I watched, and I didn't love it the first time because I didn't really realize what the DC showcase system is. So you had like this really cool Constantine opening that is a epilogue to Apocalypse War, and it sets up everything going on with the DC animated films now with Crisis. So it is this really interesting tie together between the two worlds, but then that's only like the first 20 minutes. And then there's what, three other stories that go with it. So there's Commandy, the last boy on Earth, which is interesting. It's an interesting kind of like Planet of the Apes story, but they're trying to find Superman. So it's like, okay, this is interesting. You have a Blue Beetle done very much like the Batman of the 60s. And like that kind of cartoony style, lots of reused animation. One of the most interesting things is that it's almost a satire of that era of animation, not just in terms of like the writing, but in terms of how the animation was made. So it seems like there's a lot of purposeful mistakes. So colors will be done wrong on characters, but just in one shot. Yeah. You can clearly tell that animation is being reused over and over and over again. But it's done in this authentic way, and it's Blue Beetle. You could do worse.
Yeah.
And then the losers, which again ties directly to Crisis, where the losers are on a mission and they find the giant wall of death that we see in Crisis. So it's just like, all right. You know, I kind of ran past this. I think that it's stupid that you have the intro before every single short. So you have like this extra minute and a half between each short that just doesn't need to be there because it's the DC logo, the full DC logo, where they go through every character. And then this little vignette that tells you it's a showcase, and that plays every single time before any one of these starts. And it's just like, you didn't need to do that. You didn't need to do that. Credit where credit's due. I liked it more the second time than the first time. Last one I wanted to hit was one that I haven't seen, but I did see on the Max, but it was taken off the Max, so now I got to go back and watch it, which is Deathstroke Knight and Dragons. Have you seen this?
No, I have not.
Yeah, so this is a Deathstroke movie.
Okay.
And it's very interesting, especially if you know that Deadpool is kind of a joke version of Deathstroke. My favorite joke that my friend Rosie had was, how do you swim in the Deadpool? You do the Deathstroke.
Oh, Jesus.
I found this very interesting because it plays with a lot of different concepts. It tries to frame Deathstroke as this like avenging angel type, kind of like the Punisher or Venom.
Okay.
But he has like this whole family dynamic that's going on. There's, of course, a family tragedy that happens, but also just like the life that Slade Wilson lives leaves a lot of people in his wake. It's just like there's a lot of dead bodies and a lot of cast off people.
He's got a lot of red on his ledger like Marvel likes to overuse.
No, but it's so interesting. There were a few moments that didn't work for me. They try and have his ex-wife be a character, but they don't use her in any particularly interesting way.
That's
so
weird.
There are just like some moments where you're like, oh, is she just here so she can be something that Slade has to save, or someone that Slade has to come in and keep from falling off the tail of this plane? There are just some interesting decisions. Bronze Tiger is not I've seen a few different versions of Bronze Tiger. This is like antithetical to every Bronze Tiger I've ever met. This is not a man of honor. He's literally a warmonger where he's just going back and forth between these two warring sides in Eastern Europe. And he just fights for one side for a year, and then he'll go to the other side and fight for them, and then he'll go to the other side and fight for them. It's like, this is not Bronze Tiger. This is not the Bronze Tiger I know. But it is an interesting movie, and it brings up some interesting arguments, like the idea of what love looks like to people like this. What does it feel like? What do they think love is versus this love between these two siblings that are kind of at the heart of the movie itself. And it's really fascinating. It's a little off at times just because I've seen Deathstroke in some very unflattering light in a lot of cases. His time as a villain with the Teen Titans and everything with Tara, and you know, depending on what version you're looking at, that gets real grody real fast. I still remember the Judas Contract from the last animated universe where she comes out in makeup, and I'm just like, she's like 16 and he's like 45. This is not good.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's just interesting to see Deathstroke as like this three-dimensional character that they tried to make an anti-hero where he's like, I only kill bad people. It's like,
It is an interesting choice to revolve a movie around as far as a singular character.
Yeah, like the title of the movie, Knights and Dragons, is a reference to the book that Slade Wilson reads his son at night, where it's about a shining knight who is a DC character coming in and slaying dragons and then moving on and just letting the kingdom go back to its ways of peace now that the monsters are gone. And it's supposed to be like, oh, Slade thinks he's a knight going in and slaying monsters, but he doesn't realize that he's one of the monsters. And it's just like, okay, this is interesting, but we never get into any of that.
See, in hearing that title, I would be disappointed because they have that penance to do time travel, or like with Gotham by Gaslight, putting the character in a different setting, a different time. They would have had him in like the King Arthur days fighting dragons and knights. That would have been awesome.
That could have been interesting.
Deathstroke's a perfect character for that.
Yeah. So it wasn't a bad movie, but it definitely felt like it was reaching. It didn't feel authentic. And that's mainly because I don't see Slade as a heroic figure in any other way. You know, you have to go to Counter Earths where you have like Ultraman and Lex Luthor is a good guy and the Jester instead of the Joker. Then you get like Slade Wilson as a good guy, and you're like, okay, that makes sense because this is the world where all the villains are good guys, all the good guys are bad guys. Cool. This felt kind of like a reach, but that's just me knowing the character, not within the narrative itself.
I got you.
So I did really quick want to note that me and Kelly finished My Lady Jane.
Oh, how did it end?
It was very fun. We had a very good time finishing it. Nice, good tension all the way through. They leave it open for a second season, but they try and seal off enough boxes so that if they don't get a second season, it's not a big deal. It's a really fascinating show. A lot of the issues I had with the first half of the show were mitigated and resolved during the second half of the show.
Okay.
And of course, the one thing that breaks the curse is love. So you still have a solid fantasy base to all of this, but it's just like, it's almost like watching, because the way that Queen Mary is the villain in this is almost like the McPoyles from Always Sunny.
Yes.
Like the look she has on her face, I've seen on the McBoyle boys. Mm-hmm. Like I've seen that look, and it gets so over the top at times, but in a good way, in a fun way.
Was she ever in a bathrobe and ill-fitting tighty whities?
No. But she doesn't bathe either.
Oh,
part
awesome.
of her plot is that she refuses to bathe, so her fingers and toes are very dirty, and we get to see those on a fairly regular basis.
That's gross.
It's a really weird but fun show. The politics of it was good, the plotting was good, the narrative was good, and the acting was good. It was a really fascinating retelling of a historical event that I don't know many people know. I do think the animal thing worked by the end, but it definitely was you're either going to get hit with that wave and keep going, or it's going to make it so you can't watch the show.
Okay.
There's really no in between. So, but I liked it. I'd
Nice.
give it like a solid B plus A minus.
Nice. Well, that's good. So, new shows are always good to be surprised by.
Exactly.
We seem to be always aiming at this one demographic, so being able to branch out to different things is nice.
I don't know what you're talking about,
Yeah, I don't know what
Steve.
you're talking about. So before we get on to trailers, because I know at least two trailers that we got to talk
Two
about.
trailers that I want to talk about.
I just wanted to briefly, I actually had a slow week with this. The only thing that I did accomplish is my son and I finished WandaVision.
Oh, good for you.
And I do have to say, after those first few episodes, it really does get good. And that show had a very strong ending.
I still think 3, 4, and 5 are really, really solid episodes. I think 6 I'm just bummed by because of the Quicksilver reveal.
Okay.
Where his name is literally Butt.
Yeah, that was dumb. The boner.
Boner. That's what it is.
But, like, the cool thing about that was my son had no idea what that was when he showed up. So I had to explain to him, and then I showed him the Quicksilver introduction and breaking out of Magneto from Days of Future Past, and he's like, oh, and he gets it now.
Yeah.
But it was still, even though I knew it was coming, I still had this goofy smile on my face when he showed up, because I'm like, oh, that's Evan Peters.
I love it. I loved it as a concept and as an execution. It was literally just the reveal at the end that I was like, you had to ruin this.
Yeah.
This was so good and so cool, and I was totally willing to run after this with you. And no pun intended.
Yeah.
And man, you really fudged it right at the end there, didn't you?
They did. And I gotta say, kind of sticking with what you're saying, the end, the only issue I had is I still, even the second time around, was not in love with the Agatha Harkness character. So the fact that they're making a show where she is the focus, I don't know if I'm going to like that show, because I wasn't in love with her character.
We're going to get to it in just a minute.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's pretty much it. We haven't, we're going to try to make it through. I think if you're following the timeline on Disney Plus, you have to watch WandaVision, the first season of Falcon and Winter Soldier, the first season of Loki, and then it's Shang-Chi. So we're kind of going in that linear.
I miss the days when there was just like a simple timeline. Like it was just like,
so
what
messed
year does
up.
this movie take place in?
It's so messed up. But once again, and I thought about you that when we were watching this, the one thing I will give WandaVision, it is one of the few MCU entities that really delved into the snap.
Yeah, finally.
Yeah, like it's like you see a lot of fallout from that, and it's like, okay, like that's cool to see, knowing that we really don't hear anything about it for the rest of eternity.
That's what I'm so frustrated by, because I felt that way about Falcon Winter Soldier too.
Yeah.
Of just like we're getting more and deeper details on the snap and everything that happened. And then just nobody ever mentioned it again.
Yeah.
It was just never a thing ever again. And it's just like, you fucking kidding me? How can nobody be talking about this?
It turned into a celestial in the middle of the ocean. No one talks about it.
Jesus fucking Christ.
I know. I can't wait to watch that piece of shit again. I have not seen The Eternals since that one time we saw it.
I don't know what you would watch it and get out of it out of the second run, you know?
I don't know. Maybe
Exactly.
seeing Jon Snow again. It's been a while since I've seen him on anything.
Like, it's bad when I feel like I get more out of a second viewing of the Blue Beetle spoof showcase as part of the House of Mystery than I would out of a second watch of an entire full-length movie.
It's because more thought went into the Blue Beetle short.
Yeah.
That's obvious. Okay, well, speaking of Marvel and talking about the Winter or Falcon, I think we need to talk about a certain trailer called Captain America New World Order.
Brave New World.
Or Brave New World, that's what
It was New World Order, and then they changed it.
I keep getting it confused because of that.
Well, it also sounds like that WWE faction.
Yeah, that does. Yeah, NWO with Hulk Hogan and, oh God, Razor Ramon. The one thing I got from this trailer is it seems like they're looking for Captain America the Winter Soldier tone. That's the tone I get from this. I'm not saying quality, I'm saying tone.
I hope that's the case. Cap stories have always been more grounded just because of the nature of the character. Mm-hmm. The problem is I just don't trust Marvel not to screw it up. You know?
Especially knowing all the test screening things we've been hearing, how it's like not doing well and everyone's kind of panning it.
Well, and like, I love Harrison Ford. I love watching Harrison Ford and things. I think that you're very funny for having Harrison Ford play a presidential candidate after Air Force One. Mm-hmm. He's just going to sit there and say, "Get off my plane."
If the Red Hulk says that once, I'll lose my shit. That'd be the best.
But this is my thing. Why do Ross? Like, I get why, right? Because Ross is the Red Hulk. Okay, right? 1-to-1. I get it. We've been talking a lot about adaptation. Mm-hmm. We've been talking about what makes good adaptation, what makes bad adaptation, when do you change things, how do you change things, the why of it. I'm not going to sit here and say Bill Hurt's Thunderbolt Ross was so iconic that no one else can pick up the role. I am going to say that Thunderbolt Ross was so not iconic that you could 100% walk right past him and have it be one of the many other Hulkbuster affiliated army men who are part of this.
Yeah.
Whether that's Talbot or, hell, I would take, well, no, Betty Ross wouldn't make any sense. But, like, you know what I mean? There's other people that this could be. Having it be a fully different actor playing a different version of this character, and then you have this line in the trailer where they're like, "Oh, I'm still not used to the new look. Oh, they said I couldn't win the election with a mustache." The fuck is happening? What the hell is this? I don't understand. Can someone please explain what's happening? Because, like, I understand, but I don't understand. I just feel like there's a way to not have this be an 80-year-old man.
Mm-hmm. And that's my problem. Is like, because even like you said, William Hurt wasn't someone like super iconic that you'll never forget, but him and Sam Elliott at least carried that same.
Bring back Sam Elliott.
Yeah, they carried that same tone, like that gruff tone. Where when you first see Harrison Ford, he's so soft spoken and like jovial. It's like that's not this character ever.
No.
In any iteration has he ever been this like, well, I'm a quiet politician now, and
well, and like, so he was Secretary of Defense during Civil War.
Yes.
And so he presided over the Sokovia Accords.
Yes, and he was an asshole still.
That was his thing. That was his administration's big thing. Now, admittedly, politics is concocted at this point.
Yes.
But I feel like Call me crazy. The Sokovia Accords, which were supposed to keep everybody safe, happened like a year and a half before half of the population of the entire universe was dusted. And then 5 years later, they came back. And Thunderbolt Ross was there for that whole thing.
Yeah.
And what we're worried about in the polls is his mustache? But are we sure there's not something else that's maybe kind of a bigger deal?
And you actually just brought up something not long ago that I guess I've never thought about. The Incredible Hulk movie with Edward Norton is canonical to the MCU. That is the intro of the Hulk to the MCU. How is there never, in all of the years since then, in all of the movies, the name Betty Ross never been mentioned again?
Never.
I don't get that. Like, now that you said it, it just clicked in my head for the first time in all these years watching these movies. I'm like, he's never said Betty.
No, he left the planet. He left the planet and was more heartbroken about leaving Black Widow behind than just full abandoning Betty Ross.
I don't get it. Like, I don't get that. Oh my God, that just blew my mind right there.
They don't get comics. They don't get it. It's the same reason that they cast Ty Burrell as Doc Samson. Because that's just a fucking joke. That's not going to be anything. Because who the fuck is Doc Samson? Well, he could be somebody if you cared, but you don't. And so now he can't.
I had even forgotten about that. And I love Ty Burrell.
I'm supposed to sit here and be like, oh, the leader's coming back in this one, guys. They're going to finally cap that well. Jesus, after all this time?
Yeah.
No, that doesn't make any sense. Because where has he been this whole fucking time?
And why is Captain America's first movie turning into a Hulk movie?
Yeah.
You know, you're having the leader come back. You're having Red Hulk. It's like...
What did they do when Thor was failing? They brought in the Hulk.
That's true.
They stole a Hulk storyline. They smacked a Thor face on it. Had Hulk be the sidekick in this buddy cop movie. And they moved on in this new direction. What do you do when things are going a little... Throw a little Hulk in there. It'll work well.
Now, I love Anthony Mackie. I do like him a lot as an actor.
I do too.
I like the Falcon character. I thought, so far Marvel's done pretty good with him. In this trailer, he is seen not only putting his body through the same pain and suffering that Steve Rogers did, but doing the same kind of fighting moves. Now, he's never gotten super soldier serum. The only reason Cap was able to do any of that was that effing serum. So how is he, A, jumping through windows, B, doing like split kicks in the air that he's never been able to do in any of the movies?
I mean, he does have a good split kick in Civil War. I'll give him credit. When he flies over the rooftop, he does a split kick on the two guys at the beginning when they're hitting the place in Africa, the disease warfare place. But I agree. Like, even in the comics, Sam Wilson either has gone through some sort of super soldier serum, has had being mind controlled, or being part of various factions. I don't disbelieve that he would be this great fighter. I got no problem with that. But I hope that they don't just have him be able to survive anything and just kind of brush it off.
That's what I'm nervous about. That's what they're making it look like.
Even John McClane is limping and barely holding himself together by the end of Die Hard. Yeah. So it better be something like that where he is like holding a shoulder and he's just dragging a leg and he's just like, I'm still Captain America. I'm still going to do it. Because otherwise, Tony had a whole suit of armor to keep him safe.
Yeah. I don't know. We'll have to see.
Like, you look at Hawkeye, because I think Hawkeye and Black Widow would be the closest simile, although Black Widow still went through some sort of super soldier-ification, even in this universe. I guess it's just Hawkeye. They haven't been really good to Hawkeye.
They don't show him doing very much hand-to-hand fighting.
No.
And in Age of Ultron, he's like jumping through windows and he's like, oh, I'm in so much pain. And he's talking about how much I heard he is.
He's sore. But that's because he's old, Steve.
Well,
he's
got
an
run
old
over by
man.
a snowplow, so that's why.
He's the oldest man on the Avengers, which includes a literal god and a man who was born in the 1920s.
Yeah.
But sure, Hawkeye's the oldest one
He's
on the Avengers.
Oldest one, absolutely. I know, I roll. So, we'll have to wait and see. Once again, we don't have high hopes for Marvel, especially with the early reviews of this. So we'll have to see how bad it is when it comes out.
And then we have Agatha to look forward to all along.
So let's talk about Agatha.
What is there to even talk about? Because we've decided we're not going to do the Agatha Harkness from the comics. We're going to do something different. So now this is just like the story of Agatha Harkness breaking out of the spell she's under for one episode and then putting together a coven and then going on some road trip with her coven. And I'm just like, what?
Hey, power of one, the power of two.
Hey, that's later. That's later.
But that's what I thought about when she was putting together her coven.
Yeah.
That's all I could think about. I was like, Jesus. It's branching into every aspect of every show they're doing.
Well, and it just doesn't... It's like they're trying to do some kind of horror thing without it being a horror thing.
Yeah.
And the entire time I'm just like, was that theme song in WandaVision that good?
No.
The Agatha All Along theme song? Because that's the only reason this is happening.
Yeah.
Is because people were like, oh, Agatha All Along. And for like 3 weeks, the internet was like, oh, Agatha All Along. And then Marvel was like, oh, she's popular, so we're going to make a show out of her. It's like, but is that a good idea?
No, it was a terrible idea. The trailer actually made me think about, what's the Bette Midler movie? Hocus Pocus.
Hocus Pocus.
I'm like, okay, so they're making a Marvel version of Hocus Pocus just without Bette Midler or the bad nose prosthetic. That's pretty much what it is.
They're going to have some callbacks to Evil Dead and the Executioner, the Exorcist. No, like
it looks like shit.
I don't have anything to even look at and be like, oh, at least there's going to be this. There's just nothing. There's nothing I recognize. I'm admittedly not like this Agatha Harkness deep lore guy, but the stories that I have read with her in them don't resemble this.
No.
So I'm just like, so this is just a Catherine Hahn vehicle to do like kind of a goofy horror comedy, and then it also is in the Marvel universe? Why would I be interested in this?
I don't know.
What's there to sell me on this?
I was saying the same thing. I have no idea why I'd be interested in this show.
Yeah. Why would anybody be interested in this show?
Especially after the success of Werewolf by Night. It's like you couldn't have crafted a horror-themed episode, like a one-shot with her, and just do like a one-shot that does have like some scary horror elements to it.
Yeah.
No, you have to do some kind of weird team-up show that doesn't make any sense.
I'm just... like, there usually forgive me, I got fat and sassy on my laurels for the last 10 years of being served to as a fan of this genre. Usually you want to put something out there that the fans are going to be like, ooh, look at that, I can't wait to see that, I've been waiting forever to see that. There wasn't a single moment of that in this. There was not a single moment of like, oh, they're finally doing this. Oh, we're finally gonna see that. No, nothing. Yeah. And like, that's not a vote of confidence. That's how I felt when I got to the end of the Brave New World trailer, and they didn't say who the directors or writers were. Mm-hmm. I was like,
because they
keep changing. That's extremely telling.
They keep changing. They probably don't even know who the director is of the fucking movie.
Who's on the final contract?
Yeah, exactly. The thing that kills me about the Agatha, though, is I don't know if they remember the fact that WandaVision was popular is it was the first MCU TV show. And that's what drew in a lot of viewership. And it starred 2 Avengers. So it's
not only that, it was also the first thing after Endgame, not including Far From Home.
Exactly.
The first in-universe thing that was like distinctly in-universe.
Exactly.
There wasn't any like, oh, if you like think of it this way or da-da-da. It was definitely a Marvel thing. It was definitely a Disney thing. It was one of their flagship things when they were doing the pandemic with Disney Plus. And everybody loved it. And then they spent the last 3 years moving as far away from that as possible.
But you got to think, how many of those people that watched it that are not like super comic booky people like us actually remember it?
That's my thing. how many casual fans are going to come back for Agatha?
So you're going to take a tertiary character from this show and make a show for her. What'd you say? It was like 4 years later, I think, by the time this comes out. It'll be 4 years.
Something like that, because that came out in 2021. So, like, it'll be 3.5 years since it came out. And on top of that, you're talking about a tertiary character who was really just kind of a gag. Mm-hmm. And then some people really liked her, but she wasn't even like the biggest thing in that show.
No, not even close.
And now she's going to have her own show, and there's not going to be any nerd cred to bring us in. Nobody's going to watch this.
No.
Nobody's going to watch this.
Well, we're probably going to have to for this show because
I don't know. I haven't watched Loki season 2. I don't intend to.
You're not wrong. You're not wrong. So we'll have to see. I know I'll probably watch it because of my son. Maybe that'll be my watch, play, read. We'll talk about
We'll see.
I don't even want to think about it.
I might plead the fifth on that one.
The trailer I really wanted to talk about is Gladiator 2.
Yes.
Dude, it looks really good. I'm not going to lie.
It looks good.
It looks so good. I don't know how the hell they would tell this story. And so it's the little kid who was his mother. It was the sister to Caesar. And the little kid is now grown up and he's fighting in the gladiatorial ring. And, like, Denzel looked awesome. Like, everyone looked awesome.
Denzel looks great.
Pedro Pascal.
Denzel and Pedro Pascal looks great. Oh. Joe Quinn, Eddie.
Oh, from Stranger Things. He looks awesome.
I thought he was playing both the blondes. Both of the blonde emperors. But no, he only plays one of them.
And he just seems like such a dick. He looks awesome.
But, like, the whole thing looks incredible. Like,
it really does.
I was not sitting here being like, oh, yeah, Gladiator 2, this is going to be great. And then I saw this great big buzz on the internet over it, and I was like, all right, I'll check out the trailer. Watch the trailer, I'm like, damn, son, this kind of looks good.
Because that, to this day, is one of my favorite. It was actually the very first Blu-ray I ever got was Director's Cut of Gladiator. And I love that movie so fucking much. Like, I would get in arguments over people who would, like, go to their grave saying 300 was better. I'm like, not even remotely. No. Gladiator is so good.
Gladiator actually has a story. Listen, I love 300. 300's a popcorn movie, though.
Yes.
Gladiator was nominated for Academy Awards. There's a reason
why. It won Best Picture and Best Actor for Russell Crowe. Dude, that movie was so good.
Yeah.
And this does look like it just picks right up from where it left off. Visuals and everything.
The spectacle of the Colosseum is incredible to look at. And you just want to see it. You just want to see that in this giant cinemascope.
And I like how they're doing like the gladiatorial water fights and stuff. It looks so
cool. And then you have the rhino fight. Like, there looks like there's gonna be some dope ass shit.
Yeah. So I'm actually curious for an actor that we are going to see in a later review of Rebel Moon, Djimon Hounsou. Because he survives at the end of Gladiator, and he's obviously the age where he could be back in this. That he was not in the trailer, but I'm wondering if they're going to get him to come back.
No, he's not. I wonder, because as we'll see in Rebel Moon, dude's still jacked.
Dude, that dude is insanely jacked. I was shocked when I saw him cutting grain for 12 hours. But we'll talk about that more. We don't need to talk about this right now.
We'll get there.
Yeah,
Steve, we'll get there.
I know. Yeah, he's 60.
Wow.
He's 60.
Wow,
and he
dude's 60?
Like the kids like to say nowadays, he's yoked.
Seriously.
Dude is a monster.
Is ripped.
Yeah, at 60.
Dude's got biceps bigger than I ever did when I was in my 20s.
Dude's, he's kind of like, he's got that Ernie Hudson build. You see Ernie Hudson when he was doing the...
Yeah, Ernie Hudson's fucking yoked too.
I think he's 70s.
Yeah, he's up there. Get him back for The Crow.
Did you have any other trailers?
Did you see the Jackpot trailer?
No, I haven't seen
that. That also looks interesting. I don't know what to do with it. It's basically, it takes place in the short-term future. You're basically being in California, which is its own republic. In this, you get put into a lottery, and if you win the lottery, anyone who kills you gets everything you own.
Oh, zoo.
And so Aquafina wins the lottery, and John Cena has to protect her, and hilarity ensues. So that looked interesting. I don't really know what to do with it, but it could be funny. It's an interesting concept.
See, you kind of lost me as soon as you said that name.
Aquafina and John Cena?
Yep.
Yeah,
no, just Aquafina. I can't take her anymore. Nothing against her. I have nothing against her. I can't take her. It's like almost like Miley Cyrus's voice. I can't listen to it anymore. Mm-hmm. Nothing against them. They can, live your life, be free. I just personally can't listen to that voice anymore.
I get it. Did you see...
And I don't know. I think it's just Aquafina's... She's too in everything.
She is everywhere right now.
She, especially animated. She's voice acting every effing movie.
Yeah. Did you see the trailer for the new Time Bandits?
No.
Okay. We won't talk about that.
And because I don't want that movie to happen.
It doesn't look very good. It looks pretty bad.
You don't remake Time Bandits.
It looks pretty bad. And they changed the plot, and it just doesn't look very good.
So why? Why would you do that?
I don't know.
I don't get it.
Listen, we can't make anything new. We have to just find a property that no one remembers from 20 years ago and make that.
Are they going to make Brazil next? Are they going to remake all Terry Gilliam's?
Just wait.
Are we going to see a remake of Eraserhead?
I'm telling you right now, someone has talked about remaking Brazil. Someone has 100% had that conversation.
Yeah.
They already remade 12 Monkeys, so just put it on the list.
All right, folks. I think it's time.
Do we have to?
Watch, Play, Read is done. That means we are on to the Acolyte Episode 7 choice. Now, when I say Episode 7, it's really like... I'm going to use a movie I love as an example for something I hate. It is like... Lion King 1.5, where you're seeing it from Timon and Pumbaa's
perspective,
vantage point, but you're seeing a great movie from a great vantage point. This, you're seeing the worst episode 3, from a different vantage point. It's like, why would you do that?
Steve,
you're just making us relive the worst fucking thing.
It's again. So much worse than that, Steve. It's so much worse than that. You mean
the Animal Crossing Jedis in the beginning doing metal detectors?
No, we have to talk about this. We 100% have to talk about this. Okay, everybody out there, I'm going to give you 3 points. 3 points to remember from 3 different pieces of canon that were developed by 3 different creative minds. First and foremost, we got to honor where we came from. Empire Strikes Back. Luke is training with Yoda. There's this dark, creepy cave in the woods. Luke's like, what's in there? Yoda's like, you shouldn't go in there. But he knows that Luke has to go in there. So he's like, just don't believe anything you see. Place is crawling with dark side. It's trying to scare you. You have to be ready. You're not ready. And Luke goes in, and we all know what happens. Vader, slice. Oh no, it's Luke. Okay, so that's one. A little bit more modern. The Last Jedi. Let's take from Disney's own tree, because that movie is still trying to be parts of the original trilogy, the Holy Trilogy, kind of refashioned into a new form. So Rey goes into this cave because there's a lot of Force energy coming out of the cave. And she's like, oh shit. And then she sees a bunch of versions of herself and then snaps, and then the rest of that movie happens, which is dramatically less consequential to everything that happens in Empire Strikes Back. And then, let's be real fun here. Let's get an animated show. All right? So Star Wars Rebels, which is the prequel to Ahsoka.
Yes.
They talk a lot about how there are these points in the universe where the Force is especially strong. And this is usually where the Jedis have built temples. But even on wild planets, you can still find these incredibly strong Force points where a being voiced by Tom Baker explains to the resident Jedi, who has been blinded and now can only see via the Force, that the Force is greater than just what the Jedi know and what the Sith know. It goes beyond that. There's all kinds of elements to it, right? At no point in any of these movies or shows did anyone have a metal detector. Nobody had to use their tricorder to take samples. Nobody was stuffing plants into jars so they could get readings on them. You know why? Because they're fucking Jedi! Yeah. You can feel it! when there's a lot of Force energy, when there's not a lot of Force energy, Luke and Leia can feel each other across the galaxy. Yeah. Okay? The Force binds us, goes through us, is around us. You may have heard this before. Mm-hmm. And I bring this up because we're told the only reason these Jedi are even on the planet where these witches are is because there might be what they are calling a vergence.
Vergence of the Force.
A vergence is just where 2 points in the Force converge. It's a really, really clever name. Somehow, the Jedi who are on this planet, because this planet used to be a barren wasteland and is now very, very fertile and growing all kinds of fruit and trees and everything and animals, suddenly this planet's all good. So they gotta check it out. But they're not good Jedi. So it's not like they can just sense that the Force is here, because they're terrible Jedi. Yeah. And so we get to have the introduction of tricorders into Star Wars. And finally!
Even in this show, there's already proof that droids exist.
Yeah.
Droids are what do that work. Yeah. Not super powerful fucking Jedi.
Why is this a thing at all?
Yeah.
At all. This is some bullshit.
Yes. When they get to the planet, every single Star Wars ship has sensors.
Yes!
That can detect life forms and structures.
And
They've
electricity.
said it in multiple movies. And electricity.
We're told in Ahsoka that they have to shut off the droid for extended periods of time along with the ship so that the people scanning the planet can't see them.
Yeah, but so the Jedi, when they get to this planet, they don't see this mountain-sized structure and can gauge all of the life forms that are in it.
Well, and then when they go to it, fucking Torben is like, oh, this must be from a mining colony. You just said the planet was desolate. That's why you're here. What are you talking about?
Dude, Torben, I can't with Torben in this episode. It's like, I didn't realize that a Jedi who at his age is coming to the end of his training.
He should be
not
done.
new into training, should be done, is the whiniest little bit.
I want to go home.
Oh, I don't even know why we're
maybe
here.
I want to have sex. And I kind of have some mommy issues. But mostly I want to go home. Because I'm
unbearable.
Bored.
Dude, so unbearable.
Awful.
So unbearable. I couldn't take it.
Awful shit.
It's like, it was worse than anything Anakin Skywalker in the prequels as far as whining. And it was like up there with Kylo Ren's whining and complaining. But you're like, dude, what are you doing?
But even that made sense within the context of the character. Kylo Ren, when we are introduced to him, the reason he's such a whiny baby is because he believes that is the connection to the dark side, is to just fully emote, to just run after every emotion he feels. So of course he's a whiny baby because he's always over emotional about everything, because that's what he thinks is going to connect him to Darth Vader. What's Torben's excuse? Just being a shitty Jedi. Just
He's a shitty Jedi.
Shitty Jedi.
And I'm sorry, but after watching this episode and seeing what happens,
the quote-unquote
he
sin?
didn't do anything nearly as bad to kill yourself.
No! Why did he take he took an oath of silence and then killed himself.
Yeah.
Because he wanted to go home. And these witches killed themselves.
Yeah.
When they showed up. And,
oh my God. That's the worst.
But did they? Because we see the matriarch in episode 3. We see her body. But here, she gets stabbed and turns into smoke. What? First off, let me give some context. For anybody who didn't watch the episode.
You didn't know the Force can turn you into smoke?
You know, they're discovering new things the Force can do every day. You know, it turns out 2 teaspoons of the Force can help re-level your liver, give your kidneys dialysis. Yes. It'll give you another heart ventricle. Like, you just got to put a little bit on top of your breakfast cereal every morning, and it will solve every problem you have. Unless one of those problems is picking up 2 children and levitating them towards you. Because that is impossible. Not even the Force can do that. God damn it. How could you be so blind as to believe the Force could do that? Context.
Deep breath.
So, the plot of this episode is the sin that we are kind of hinted to in episode 3.
Day 1.
There is no sin in this episode.
No.
Basically, the episode boils down to dumb Jedi who can't sense shit are on a planet for reasons related to them not being able to sense shit, but which is not part of the plot. That just happens to be the excuse for why everything happens. They're just bad Jedi.
Yeah.
So they're on this planet, blind as hell. Sol accidentally finds Osha at the tree. I want to note, they say that they haven't gone to the Northlands. Sol, you take the river, not to the Northlands. We're going to get there tomorrow. So they've just been in the general area of this coven. Couldn't sense it. Never saw it. Never scanned for anything. But man, have they been collecting plants. Oh, baby, we got samples. Oh, shit, dog. You think the astronauts brought moon rocks back? Holy shit. We got plants, baby.
We got ferns, Jedi ferns.
God damn it. We got so many. So Sol discovers these kids, and he follows them home. And he's like, oh, this is bad. And he goes back to the Jedi, and he's like, this is bad. And Trinity is like, it's not bad, and you're being impulsive. And you're taking your own emotion and projecting them on other people. Which he's definitely not.
Yeah.
Because Torben is sitting here being like, I don't like it here. And Sol's like, is this how you want to train him? And Trinity's like, yeah, this is how you're supposed to train a Jedi. And I was like,
yeah, this is why you don't have a Padawan.
This is dumb shit, guys. This is dumb shit.
Dumb.
So anyway, so Sol figures out where these witches are, sneaks into their house.
By climbing up the effing mountain faster than, I mean, they don't show him using, like, Jedi speed.
This is my thing. He could have climbed the mountain with Force powers. Yes. With established Force powers. But he doesn't. He climbs up it on his hands and knees. Why?
He's full cliffhanger Stallone.
Which no one could ever know. No one could ever know why they did it this way. Because it makes no fucking sense. No rational person would look at this and say, yes, this makes sense.
And it makes even less sense when him and Tobin came back and they have to climb it in a hurry.
Yeah, because it's on
to
fire.
Get up there. Yes. And they find a way to him and Torben climb this insane mountain in like minutes.
And they're fine. They're not tired. They're not Wesley where you've climbed the cliffs of insanity and it's just like, give me 5 minutes. And just, none of that shit. None of that fucking shit. They are ready to go because they are definitely competent Jedis. So Sol has one of those moments that you see in sitcoms where someone sees something out of context and thinks something else is going on. So he sees the girls, quote unquote, training, and he's like, oh, they're abusing these girls. We got to get them out of here. So he goes back to Trinity and is like, we got to test the girls. Trinity's like, fine. If it will shut you up, we'll go and we'll talk to them. And so they all go in, and there's this whole conversation about whether all 4 of them should go in, or maybe just Trinity should go in.
Oh my God,
and then Sol's like, fuck it, we're all going in. So they all go in. And then we see what happened. They interrupt this ceremony, and they have better sense than I do, so they can clock the difference between Osha and May. How? Not entirely sure. Because by the time they show up, May's bangs are already covering the symbol on her forehead. But fuck it. That doesn't matter, because fuck you. Star Wars doesn't need to make sense.
But see, they can figure it out until the ending climax, when Saul can't tell the difference between the two of them, even though he has such a strong connection to Osha.
He just knows she's his Padawan. He
absolutely
knows, like, deep down. But before we get there, we have to have Torben have his little mommy moment where the matriarch is just kind of circling around him.
Yeah.
Kind of like being like, what, you want to ask me something? You want to ask me something? Come on, ask me, come on, ask. And then he doesn't ask a question. He says, I want to go to Coruscant. That's not a question. She keeps on saying, ask me your question. You have a question, ask me your question. And I'm just like, is the question, can I fuck you? Because that genuinely seems to be the feel of this whole thing. Because she's talking about like giving in to your deeper desires and not cutting yourself off from life, and how the Jedi way isn't the right way. And I'm just like, she wants to fuck this teenager. I don't know why, but clearly she wants to fuck this teenager.
She must be a Game of Thrones fan.
Right? So she saw him take that faceplant out the window and was like, that's the guy for me.
If you did that for Natalie Dormer, you'll do anything for me. So
this is what he sees when she's in his head. And then that scene ends and they all go back to camp. And then they test the girls. May purposely flubs the test. And we're all like, wow, shocker. And Soul's like, oh, we're going to do a different thing with Osha. And Trinity's like, fine, if it'll shut you up. Basically, that's Trinity's whole thing. It's just like, Soul wants to do something, he pesters her and pesters her and pesters her, and then she's like, fine, if it will shut you up, then we'll do it.
Great leader.
And so she calls the council. And the council says Mace Windu's favorite thing.
Go fuck yourself. Yeah.
You're too old. So you can't be a Jedi because you're too old. You're too old to start. No. And so, which, you hear that a lot. It's weird.
Yeah,
it's weird how often you hear that.
I'm tired of that.
Because it seems like, call me crazy, all the kids that we've seen that are Force sensitive are like about the same age as Osha and May. So when do you start your Jedi training? When you're 4? When you're 2? Like, what? Is there a nursery on Coruscant in the temple somewhere that we aren't aware of? What is the best premium age for someone to be a Jedi? Because I'm getting confused.
It's annoying. It really is getting annoying.
They take a blood sample, which will come up later. Osha has her moment, but Trinity's like, you were leading the witness, so she didn't pass. Okay. I mean, she did pass. She still was able to use the Force to see things on this paddle. So even if he told her to calm down and do what she wants, that has nothing to do with her being able to use the Force. Yeah, the whole leading
thing was annoying.
It just shows that she can still use the Force. But fine. Trinity says no. Well, then the blood samples come back from the lab. And having watched a lot of medical shows in my time, there's just a wonderful moment of somewhere between science fiction higgledy-piggledy and medical gobbledygook.
Yeah.
Where they just slam these things together and they say their M numbers are off the chart. And what's this?
And it's like, you can't say midichlorians?
The symbiotes on them are exactly the same. Well, but they're twins. The symbiotes would be similar. No, these are exactly the same. It's like they're one person in 2 bodies?
That look completely different.
And I'm just like, what the fuck is happening? So your solution to midichlorians was to triple down.
Yeah.
We're going to have midichlorians, but then we're going to introduce another thing on top of that. And that's going to be used as a springboard to get us to the finale of the episode. Mm-hmm. Because now Torben's like, this is proof, we can go home if we get the girls. So he just takes off. He's gonna go get the girls.
When he takes off and jumps on their retro speeder bike, I'm like, okay, the other 3 are Jedi Masters.
Yeah.
They can't use the Force to stop him in any way. Stop the speeder bike.
Listen, you can only catch people and pull them with the Force when Miss Headland says that you can do that.
I'm like, we've seen Vader pull a spaceship out of the sky.
We saw Trinity catch a guy who's falling off of a balcony in the first episode of this series. We've seen people use the Force to pull people around in this show. But and this will come up again later. They keep forgetting that they can do that.
It's annoying as hell.
It's more than annoying.
When he sped away, I was like, how the fuck are they not using the Force to stop him?
This is fucking sacrilege. Like, this is terrible.
Oh, it's terrible. It's so bad.
So Saul goes after Torben. Meanwhile, May has set the fire. And the reason it gets so out of control, even though it's a giant stone building, is because it gets to the electrical system and starts shorting out the electrics. The electrics that they couldn't scan for when they didn't scan the planet and had to collect plants instead.
Yeah.
I just want to make sure there is electricity.
There is full-fledged electricity in that building.
So they could have scanned for them.
Yes.
Okay.
But even that, like, man, electrical fires still need burnable materials to start a fire.
Even if you just said that it got to a fuel cell, I'd be like, okay, fine.
Yeah,
but
exactly. Exactly.
You just see some cables sparking in this, like, it looks like when you pop open an elevator door to get at the cables. It's like, like this little panel's open, and now there's this fire, and maybe oil, even though the oil's only on the ground, somehow the fire is crawling up the wall. I don't know why. I don't know how. That's not important. This is fucking Star Wars. You think things have scientific meaning? No.
No, they
We're going to invent science, and then have it have no meaning. So, Sol and Torben climb the tower. Meanwhile, not Darth Maul, Mama Maul, has decided that she wants to fight. And so she's going to pick a fight with these Jedi. She's not going to use her Force powers. She's going to use her spear against these Jedi.
Yeah.
Not the Force. Oh, excuse me. She can't use Force powers. She doesn't know how to use Force powers. She follows the thread.
Yes. And the thread is not used for violence.
Except unless it is.
Unless it is.
Like when you're pushing over your children using the Force, you don't use the thread for violence until you use the thread for violence.
And then Mama Maul attacks May to get her to
Well, she convinces May.
Vicious.
She's like, May, get angry. You should be angry. Give in to your anger. And so May goes off and sets this fire. And then when Torben and Saul arrive, Mama Maul decides to fight them, but Saul won't fight her back. Oh, wait, I skipped an important thing, which is that the matriarch, Ananissa, I guess the threat is dramatically different because at one point she seemed like she was going to merge with the girls and she just starts turning into smoke. And then the girls start turning into smoke. And we were told that the girls were going to be the next leader of the coven. So it's like, is this the end goal? Why are they twins then? I don't understand. I've seen this story too.
And that's the part that pissed me off is that's the scene where it's Osha is still trapped in a room.
Yeah.
And it's May that runs out and starts to be dematerialized, let's say, for lack of a better term. And Saul turns and yells, Osha! And it's like, you have this deep connection to this girl, and I'm sorry, those two girls do not look enough alike to confuse them. And you're going to be like, oh, that must be Osha.
They're terrible Jedis. They're the worst really Jedis. Terrible.
It's the worst writing. It's so
terrible
bad.
Writing. He can't tell his own head from his ass.
No.
And so
he stabs Smoke.
Pointlessly stabs the matriarch for no reason.
But once again, though,
he's surprised when he does it.
She's completely smoke in the area. Like, he stabs her through the midsection, which is completely smoke at that point.
Yeah.
But for some reason, the lightsaber forced her to reform around it, which killed her.
Yes. So now she's dead.
But
she's not dead in the place or form that we see her dead.
Not even remotely.
Earlier in the series.
No, because she's with all the other witches.
She's on the rooftop.
Yeah.
And then in episode 3, she's in that main hall where all these witches are dead.
Yes.
Which it turns out they all die because they're all working together to control the Wookiee. And so they're like, here, a Wookiee Jedi lightsaber fight. Isn't this good? Doesn't this make you happy? No. Because you had metal detectors in this episode.
Yeah.
You think I forgot about the metal detectors and the ferns? No. This is terrible. And now you're just insulting me by giving me this.
Yeah.
Fuck off. You have this stupid fight. And then Trinity comes in and she is able to free the Wookiee. and somehow by freeing the Wookiee, all the witches die.
That was the dumbest fucking thing.
Like, I don't know if they were dead or not, but we see them all dead later, so I have to presume that when she severs this connection, all the witches die?
It was like in Phantom Menace when they destroy the control ship and all the droids just stop. That's what it looked like. They were all just like,
But that still made more sense.
It made a ton more sense than this. I'm like, what the fuck? Like, at first I was looking around like, what is going on? Did they really just, like, all die? For no reason. I
didn't think they were dead, but they never came back. And the next time we see them canonically is when Sol and Osha are running through that room, and they're all dead. So that's the last time we see any of them. And no one goes over and kills all of them. So they all just die? Oh, but I forgot Mama Maul might still be around because she did do a whole smoke and disappear thing.
Yes, but I didn't want to rewatch it because it would absolutely kill me watching it a third time. But I kind of remember in episode 3 when they're running through and you see all the bodies, wasn't her body one of the ones?
I think so. I think
it was. And so it's like, okay, did she reform out of the smoke and then just drop dead or pretend to be? I don't get any of that.
Well, these are the same witches that have decided the best way to attack Jedi is with bows and arrows.
Yeah.
This is a great idea.
Yeah.
This is a great idea.
Helm's deep against the Jedis.
So now Torben is scarred because the Wookiee grabbed his face. And I guess he's scarred emotionally because he wanted to go home, and now all these people are dead, and he's going to blame himself for that, even though it doesn't make any sense.
It's so dumb.
It's a drastic leap in logic to go there, but sure.
Especially because in reality, when him and Saul get to the fortress, Saul could have stopped him. So it wasn't Torben's call anymore. Like, he didn't just go in. But the place was already on fire, so they went up to save the girls. So it's not like he did anything to cause the fire or what eventually happened. He and Saul legitimately were going up there to try to save the girls, not to steal them away like his initial thought was. So that should have gotten away all of his guilt on top of it.
He didn't kill a single witch in that entire place.
He just got his ass kicked by everybody.
Like, the most he did was spin his sword around to deflect arrows. And by deflect, I mean destroy. So, we have the scene where Sol is running, and he sees Osha and May, and they're reaching for each other, and their platforms are falling. And Sol, being the creative Jedi that he is, sees the platforms falling, and rather than try to grab the girls, who are probably around, let's say, 70 pounds apiece, he's going to grab the 500-ton structure that they're standing on, and he's going to lift that up with the Force. Oh, but it's so heavy. Oh, it's too heavy. Even for a Jedi like him, as strong as he is, he can't. He just can't hold it. Oh, sorry, May. I'm going to drop you because I have this connection to Osha. So now May falls, and then Osha falls, and he still doesn't catch her with the Force. He reaches out and grabs her with his hand. You are the worst Jedi! You are the worst Jedi! Bar none! By far the worst Jedi I've ever met! By far!
It's so bad.
This makes Ezra Bridger look like a fucking Jedi master!
Yes.
This is shit, dude! This is bull.
No, it's really bad.
Shit!
Like, I'm almost anticipating, because the 8th episode's the final episode. This is the one coming up tomorrow. I'm actually anticipating it because it's kind of like that whole saying where you can't stop looking at a car crash. This is a full-on multi-car pile-up crash with the crescendo being a semi-truck coming up behind them, and that's episode 8. I can't anticipate it more, knowing that it's gonna make me sad because it's gonna be terrible.
This is the first 30 minutes of Final Destination 2. Like, that's what this show is. And you're just waiting for that giant log truck
coming for all of us,
barreling down. And you're just, because, like, I was sitting here the whole time being like, well, maybe when we get to the sin of the show, something will shake loose, right? Some element of this will finally align, and I'll finally be able to be like, okay, I see what you're doing. I disagree with how you're doing it, but I see what you're doing. No. No logic, makes no fucking sense. This was the big reveal of the show, and it makes no fucking sense.
No.
So what am I supposed to do?
There truly is nothing now at this point that can be done to not make this the worst.
No.
Probably Star Wars thing ever made.
This is worse than Solo, which is shocking. Shocking. Because Solo still had some elements that were good, but they were far overshadowed by Han Solo. I have no people.
No, to me, that wasn't even to me, that wasn't the worst Star Wars movie. It was Rise of Skywalker. And this is worse than that.
See, that was worse for me.
That's an unbelievable mess.
Because that was full desecration of what we knew. Rise of Skywalker was just a letdown after trying to make a new series. It was like, this is the end of the series? This is bullshit.
Yeah.
The Knights of Ren mean nothing, and Captain Phasma means nothing, and the entire New Order means nothing? What's the point of all of this? What was the point of all of this? Yeah. This is just a Star Wars pastiche.
It's so bad.
But
train wreck central.
This is by far the worst, and you know it's the worst because they signed it with a 90s R&B over the credits song. Holy shit!
What was that?
Holy shit! What's happening?
Dude, I when I heard that, I thought I made a mistake.
I burst out laughing.
My iPod was playing.
I was like, there's no fucking way.
Yeah.
This is like the 90s, like if you go through and you watch the credits for Pocahontas or Hunchback of Notre Dame. What is this? And why is it
so bad
here? And the lyrics are hilariously bad. Oh my God. Everything about it is bad. Holy shit.
And you talk desecration. To me, the only thing that I've ever appreciated as much as everyone else who's a Star Wars fan, me not being a Star Wars fan, but the thing I appreciated as much is the music.
Yeah.
The music in Star Wars is unabashedly, even the Phantom Menace, which is terrible.
It's the best part of the Phantom Menace.
Duel of Fates.
The music is the best part of the Phantom Menace.
Oh, by far.
It's better than the pod race.
It's
the best better than anything else. It's the only redeeming part of Attack of the Clones. And even then, it's still not great.
But it's still good. And it's like, dude, that's like the final nail in the coffin of I don't care about anything that's happened over the last 50 years with this franchise. I don't care. This is how it's going to be from now on. And if you don't like it, you don't like women, and you don't believe in change. It's like, no. You can't do this.
You can't change the rules. My issue isn't the woman who's changing the rules being a woman. My issue is the person, whoever they are, coming in and saying, fuck your 40 years of history because I'm not doing it. And if we're going to try and cover Rebel Moon Part 2 on this as well. But that at least is pretending to be Star Wars, but has the decency not to call itself Star Wars.
Exactly. And I'm glad you brought that up because that's what they need to do from now on. If you want to make a science fiction movie and make it, whatever. I know she keeps saying there's no message to it regardless. If you want to make it the way you want to make it, just don't take a franchise that people love and then do it to that and then be mad when they're mad about it. It's like, do your own thing. No one got mad at Zack Snyder for making the Rebel Moon movies. No. They're just not great.
They're just kind of boring.
They're kind of boring, but they're different. At least, like you said, at least they're different.
They're interesting. There's interesting things in there.
Yes.
And it's not Star Wars. There's not some Force equivalent in Rebel Moon. There are people that fight with swords that light up red and blue, but there's no I'm going to use the Force to do this thing. I'm going to use the Force to read this person's mind. I'm going to use the Force to be able to tell what's going to happen. It's more of a science fiction story. It's somewhere between Star Wars and Dune. And this has the audacity to call itself Star Wars and then fully blow off every piece of history that has come before it. And then tell us that we're bigots for not liking it.
Yeah.
No, I'm not a bigot. No. I have standards. Your show sucks. If your name was Henry Johnson, your show would still suck. If you were 7 foot and had a giant dick, your show would still suck.
Why you gotta talk about me like that?
That doesn't have anything to do with the quality of your show. The fact of the matter is, you came in, thought you were smarter than everybody else about Star Wars, decided to trash everything that makes Star Wars what it is, and say we're going in a new direction, and then put your name all over it. So, yeah, you get the blame when it's a giant fucking trash pile on fire.
Exactly. All right, so let's move on. We got one more of those awful episodes. We're going to finish that off next weekend, and I can't wait to just finish
pull glass out of my eyes.
All right, so we are going to finish off this episode with our review of Rebel Moon Part 2 Scargiver, which the whole name kind of sucks, and when I heard the name, I kind of laughed.
You know, everything about it. I think Scargiver is the perfect name for this movie because it is perfectly nothing. Yeah. It sounds cool.
It's so dumb.
In concept, it sounds cool, but then you watch it and you're like, this is nothing.
And it's only like 2 or 3 times somebody's like, oh, she's the Scargiver.
Yeah.
And they have to say it with that like dramatic dun dun dun.
I have to say, Zack Snyder, you made a massive mistake having this be 2 movies and not a series. This kind of lore that you're trying to sell us desperately needs like a series for us to get into any of it, because otherwise it means nothing.
I'm glad it's done. Well, I don't even think it's done.
They want to go for 3.
And they left it open for the 3rd at the end.
They want to make a 3rd one. Netflix hasn't signed off, but they want to make a 3rd one.
Okay, so we pick up Atticus Noble, Ed Skrein's character, who's like the admiral, supposedly is dead because Cora kills him at the end. All of the band of good guys go back to the planet that they were originally... What's that planet's name?
It's a moon.
Velt, V-E-L-D-T, which is nuts. So all of the band of heroes go back to Velt, and they're like, hey, the Admiral's dead, but of course in the beginning we get to see he's not dead because they put him in a chrysalis. Mm-hmm. And they made this big deal of the fact that he didn't breathe for a while, so he might have this really bad brain damage.
But he acts the exact same as he always has.
Exact same, and no one brings up anything else about like when he wants to just open fire on the planet and destroy all the grain. The guy's not, the second in command's not like, I don't know, sir, do you sure? He's like, okay.
All right. That's what you want to do. Also,
and no one brings up the brain damage thing again. The whole movie.
Well, not only that, it doesn't make any sense that the rationale that he gives, that Skeen gives for doing this, makes no fucking sense.
No, and it's so dumb.
The rebels of Rebel Moon go back to the moon of Rebel Moon.
Yeah,
and they announced to all the people there, there's not going to be a war. We killed the admiral. Ship's not coming. Well,
and that announcement lasted 2 minutes.
Maybe that. Because the guy that stayed on the planet, you remember him? That one guy, he's still here. Because we're going to get into storytelling in a second.
Spy.
He's still here. You almost have to watch these movies back to back because you can tell they're so clearly tied together that this was a 4-hour movie. But it just is like, how could you watch this as a 4-hour movie? How could you do that? So this private is still here, and he's taking messages from the Empire, I guess, and providing status reports. And he comes and he says, no, Empire's coming in like 2 days. And they finally are like, okay, we got to come up with a plan. So the plan is General Titus, Jaimin Hunsu, who is, I think, the only good part of this movie.
He is, except for... Okay, I got to bring this up.
You want to talk about grain?
First off, Ed Skrein is as ripped as a human being I've ever seen in my life. That man doesn't look like he has an ounce of body fat on him. When he comes out of the chrysalis... Yeah. And he's standing there. I was like, Jesus Christ. Like, you could almost see the muscle fibers in his arms. When they realize that they're coming in 5 days, Titus's plan is, we need to, it takes usually like a month or 2 to harvest the grain. We got to do it in 3 days. And so they do... It seemed like it was 15 minutes of slow motion grain harvesting and flour producing.
I think it was 15 minutes, something like that. It was close to it. I was
in shock.
Well, so here's the thing. I say that this movie would have a 4-hour runtime if you watched both of them back to back. I want to know what the redux on it is. I know that somebody did one for 300, and if you take out all of the slow motion, just have it run at regular speed, I think it's about 40 minutes. I think it's twice as long because of the slow motion, because it's only a 90-minute movie to begin with. I think that maybe both of these movies together are 2 hours if you take out all the slow motion.
Because it was so jarringly ridiculous in this movie.
It just got
the amount of slow motion.
Overwhelming at times. Like, I like the artistic ones. There were some artistic moments in Rebel Moon Part 1 where he used slow motion. And, you know, Zack Snyder, when he does slow motion well, it can look really good and be really emotional. That I saw that he wanted that to be the case here, but it just wasn't. It just wasn't.
No, not even close. Because it was kind of like his Justice League cut. It was just too much. Mm-hmm. And it did take away from, like you're saying, there were some moments, like especially during the battle, there were a couple moments that the slow-mo looked cool.
Yeah.
And then, but when you continue it way past those moments, you're like, it just cheapened the great moments because you're like, well, I got another hour of slow motion to watch, so I guess
we're going to keep going
better
with this.
Just suck it up, Buttercup.
No, my thing, like, I love The Magnificent Seven. I love it. It's one of my favorite stories.
It's a great movie.
You know, whether it's Seven Samurai, whether it's the original Magnificent Seven with Yul Brynner and Steve McQueen, whether it's the 2016 Magnificent Seven, which I think is actually really good with Denzel Washington.
It is, minus Chris Pratt, but I love Denzel.
I thought he was fine in it. I thought that it was interesting watching Chris Pratt play against type, where he plays this drunk gambler. I was like, this is interesting. This is not something I've seen from Chris Pratt. So this is interesting. And it also was I watched it before I got sick of Chris Pratt. So it got in under that wire of like, I don't have that resentment for him in that movie.
See, I think that movie was my starting point of being sick of him. So I think that's why I'm more judgmental on it than you.
But this movie desperately wants to be the Magnificent Seven, like so badly.
Oh, yeah.
Like so badly. And it misses what makes the Magnificent Seven the Magnificent Seven, which is that we meet all of these characters. And some of them we don't get to know really well. You know, Harry and what's the name of Robert Vaughn's character? I can't remember. They're, you know, these characters that kind of come into the plot to be one viewpoint, right? So you have Harry is just out for gold, and then Robert Vaughn is this ex-criminal who's lost his edge. And they still have narratives. You still know what they want. They have a starting point and an ending point. And that movie is only 2 hours. It doesn't have 4 hours to do all this. You have Grit and O'Reilly, who are amazing, Coburn and Bronson, respectively. Mm-hmm. And, like, I look at Nemesis, and Nemesis is so clearly supposed to be O'Reilly from Magnificent Seven. This wanderer who's lost his family, never really had a home.
Yep. Mixed with a Jedi.
And now he meets these kids in this village, and he immediately bonds with them, and then ends up dying saving them. But Nemesis... Why is she in this movie? She is taken care of so early on in the festivities. Yeah. I was like, really? That's it? That's the whole thing. And then she's the only one of them that dies. Which means that none of this is meaningful in any way.
Well, Gunner also dies.
Oh, well, Gunner was from the planet.
Technically part of them. He's from the planet, but he was like a love interest add-on to the Magnificent Seven.
No, it's true. But, like...
Because he got his tapestry from the girl.
Oh, man. That's another thing, is that you have these intense farming scenes of them farming all day, and everybody's farming. And it's hard work, and they're farming deep into the night, and they have to bring out the lights, and they're farming. And then they go and they party. And I'm like, every one of you just worked 36 hours at least. And now you're going to party?
Yeah.
No, not a chance. Not a goddamn chance.
And Cora and Gunner get busy. Yeah. And it's like, I don't know, man.
I don't know.
Where are you getting this energy? Like, good for you, Gunner, but I'd be dead.
I've worked 15-hour days where I felt like I was going to die at the end of them. So,
yeah.
And I was just walking around a store. I wasn't swinging any equipment. I wasn't gathering stuff. I wasn't walking beyond just like the, block of the store.
Yeah.
So it's like, I don't know, guys. I feel like they'd be pretty tired.
Crazy.
So we go through, and then Titus goes through, and he's like, all of us have tragic backstories. And Cora's like, I don't. And Titus is like, you do. You definitely do. But it's okay, even though all of us are bonding over this moment, for you not to tell us your drastic backstory, because the audience just heard it.
That's the thing that killed me about that, is it's like, wait a second. So you're the third hour into this movie franchise, and now you're going to have the backstory flashbacks of these characters?
Now we're supposed to care about all of these characters after all of this.
Kind of should have happened in the first movie.
That's usually narratively how that happens.
Yeah, or not at all. Because honestly, I didn't really give a shit.
I found some of them interesting, but like the things I found interesting were the filmic aspects of it. So Tarek's story, I didn't find interesting. I found the costuming on Tarek's planet fascinating. I found the look and the production design of that planet so cool, and I was like, okay, this is rad. I would like to spend some time here, but this is a flashback, so bye. I'll see you later. And it
looked like a hippogriff,
right?
Well, isn't that thing he fought in the first movie?
It was an animal creature or similar to it. Yeah. Again, I just wanted to see more of this, and also his story didn't really make sense. That he left because he was going to be used for evil if he stayed. But he also didn't want to die because that would be the end of the royal line, so he left. All right, I guess that, all right, if you say so.
And he looked like just this like kind of geeky prince, and then he turns into this Conan the Barbarian type character
who never wears a shirt.
It's like, I don't get that.
Except when he's a farmer. When he's a farmer, shirt on. When he's a warrior, shirt off.
You don't want to see him sweat, but you want to see him bleed.
But I just never understood why they introduced all these characters. Milius is this interesting character that they do this backstory on. She has this like Furiosa look. And then she disappears for like 40 minutes. And then all of a sudden she springs out of the roof of this one hut. And you're just like, where were you during this entire fight? When Nemesis is dying and Titus and Tarek are doing this bridge defense, where are you in all of this?
Furiosa eye makeup.
And I just didn't understand the approach. I think most of all, the robot Jimmy is the biggest sign of this, of just like, the production design looks great. The character looks great. It's voiced by Anthony Hopkins, which is fine. What is he? What is his whole everything? Because he seems like this big deal. He's all over all of the art, and he has all these action figures and all these things. He's not in the plot. He barely has any association with any of the characters. He's a literal deus ex machina who will just show up and be unstoppable at the moment he's needed. And you're just like...
Well, they set him up in this movie to be the main focus of the third one. Like, at the end, when he's like, I'm gonna join your fight.
Well, I thought that was what they were doing at the end of the second one. Because at the end of the second one, they're walking down, and then he stands up out of the grass, and you're like, oh, we're gonna get more information on Jimmy, because he's still here. No.
Yeah.
We will not be doing that.
And I'll be honest, when the movie started and he started speaking, and I was like, oh yeah, Anthony Hopkins I totally forgot that he was the voice of this character.
And just like, I just did not understand a lot of the narrative choices made throughout this. Like, we were talking about sins before. The whole sin that she has where she kills this princess, and you have this whole flashback and stuff. And it's just...
And that flashback still sucks. And I gotta say, as much crap as we gave Torben with his bad beard and wig, Belisarius is up there. Like, it's not as bad, but it is so close. It is shockingly goofy looking.
Oh, it's not good.
No, it's not.
It looks very silly. It looks extremely
super silly. And especially he's supposed to be the adoptive father of Korra, and you're like,
this guy?
The dude looks like younger than her, and he's got this bad beard and a bad wig, and now he's the father.
I still find it so fascinating. Here's a term for all you friends and enemies at home that you can flash at the next party you have. I found it so interesting that they chose to have diegetic music for that scene, for the assassination scene.
I don't get it.
Diegetic music, for anybody who doesn't know, is when the music is in the scene itself. So, like, if it's on the radio and the characters are singing along to it. Or when you have a string quartet playing music while the king of a nation is assassinated.
Yeah.
Strange choice. Just a really strange choice.
The whole after fight overdone acting of, okay, so they're going to make Korra look like she's the one that killed the entire royal family, but everyone in that room is in on it, and they still act as if they're trying to sell it to somebody.
Yeah, who are they selling it to?
Yo, kill her! It's like, dude... You everyone in the room knows that they killed the king. It's like, who are you selling? You selling it to the blindfolded dummies with the freaking instruments?
Like, who is this for? Who is the charade for?
I don't know. It was so overdone too. I was like, Jesus, dude,
what is happening?
The scenery. It was bad.
I think the only thing
it was so bad.
More overdone than that was the ending. I do like their plan where they're gonna fake being this damaged ship, and they're gonna fly up and get taken to the medical center. I thought that was very clever. I like that. And then it just gets out of hand where you have Ed Skeen Noble decides that he has the Scargiver on his ship, and that's more important than like a year's worth of grain that has been the premise for this entire battle in the first place.
Mm-hmm. And the first movie.
Yeah. So... he's going to blow it all up. He's just going to blow it all up. And it takes a really long time. When you have a gun that big, it takes a really long time to get the crosshairs set.
See, and that's the thing that I'm getting tired of with this film, which I believe they're going to make a third one. I would probably bet money on the fact that it's in the process of being made. I understand they're trying to go for an aesthetic, almost like a steampunk, where you have technology and like the walking gun things at the end, and the battle had all the smoke coming out of them like they were steam engines or something. It's dumb because you have these ships that have this insane vast technology, but then when they want to move a gun to blow something up, they have to turn a little wheel like you would on a battleship in like the early 1900s or something. I'm like, I don't like that because it's not, you're not pulling it off.
I liked it in concept, but I agree in execution. There's just so many cuts back to wheel up.
Dude, so many cutbacks.
Got to change to the other wheel, other wheel. Okay,
so now it's placed, but we have to tilt it.
You gotta tilt. Wheel.
Other wheel. And now it's tilted.
Cut back. Action. Cut back. Wheel. Turning. Wheel. Taking aim.
Yeah.
Wheel. You're just like, okay. I liked it the first time. I liked it less the second time because now I'm kind of like, tick, guys. How long is this going to take?
Well, like you said, that right there added 10 minutes to the movie's runtime. It's like, dude, it's like, we know you're not going to blow up the town, so just get it over with.
Yeah. No, exactly. This is never going to happen. We all know it's never going to happen. So it's just this, they're trying to draw this tension out, but it's like an anti-Hitchcock. Whereas Hitchcock is like, you have all this tension and it's drawn out more and more. You know, Cary Grant on the side of Mount Rushmore, or on the back of that house on top of Mount Rushmore, trying not to be found. And it's just like that tension gets tighter and tighter and tighter and tighter. Yeah. That was not the case here.
That was not the case. And kind of going back to something you had said earlier, I did like the concept, like you said, of the damaged ship flying up and the smoke coming out. But you're telling me the ship doesn't know 4 or 5 ships went down, only 2 were left, all the rest got destroyed. No one is sending that information up. Yeah. And so the ship that was stolen a long time ago is coming up with smoke coming out of it, and no one questions it. And they do we're going to put it in autopilot and take it in for you. And we're going to put you in a hangar different from where the main bad guy's going, just so the story can continue. And I'm just like, oh, Jesus Christ.
I like it in concept, but in execution, there's just moments where you're like, because I had that same thought of just like nobody told them, oh, we're down another scout ship. We're down another landing ship. Okay, well, we had 5, we've lost 3.
And these people are injured. Let's leave all their facial coverings on until we're in an enclosed space that they can break out. Instead of, hey, let's remove all restrictive airwave things so maybe they can breathe and let's help them.
They were both of them. They were like, oh, their respiratories are low and their pulse is weak, and they're doing nothing to make it so they can breathe better. Nothing at all.
It was so obnoxious.
So all of this is to get Cora on the ship so she can go and blow up a thing. I thought I had taken something, because all of a sudden she's putting things in this ship where the engine is, and suddenly these big eyes open and there's a face, and I'm like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
And then it's never mentioned again, and you're just like, what the fuck is this?
I was definitely tripping out right along with you, buddy. I was like, I don't know what is going on.
I was like, I don't remember taking anything, but this can't be a thing, can it? Oh, it's a thing.
Oh, it was a thing.
But only for this one moment. They have this chase where Gunnar has to go back to the ship. Cora is fighting her way to the ship. Noble is trying to find her, and he's tearing the ship apart to find her. And then the engine blows up, and now the ship is falling. And this is important because a lot of things start happening not as quickly as you would think they would be happening. So Gunnar gets shot. Noble and Cora are fighting. They're fighting as they free fall, in this hangar that's now going sideways as the ship lists and falls out of the sky. And they're just fighting and falling and fighting and falling. And then all of a sudden you see Gunnar, who's bleeding out, just sliding across the floor. And he's like, Cora! And it's like, well, how is he alive?
I laughed my ass off.
How is he alive? He should 100% be dead at this point. Noble is going to kill Cora. Gunnar comes up and stabs him. And then Noble can't die this way, so he still keeps fighting. And then Cora locks him in a door and then chops his head off. So he's like super dead now. And then the ship is still crashing. And they have time to go back to their dropship, get in it, boot it up, and fly out of the falling ship before it crashes into the ground. And I was just like, nah. No.
And that ship was so big, and it was so close to where the village was, the shockwave from that crashing would have killed everybody. Yeah. That would have destroyed everything.
There's no chance.
That was a massive ship in free fall from space.
And from low orbit, even if it's just low orbit, that 100%. And there's so much munitions on this ship. There's so many things to blow up in this giant ship, which is the size of the village itself. And it explodes about 2 miles from the village, and everybody's just like, yeah, we won! And I'm just like, I guess so. I can't even get to the end of this movie and have the Magnificent Seven. We lost, Calvera lost, the only one who won are the farmers.
Yeah.
That's how this story is supposed to end. Everybody loses except for the farmers. The farmers are the only people who win because everybody who came to help them is dead, or morally in a situation where they hate themselves, which may have been predating them helping the farmers, but it definitely wasn't helped in the way that they thought by helping the farmers.
No.
We get none of that.
No, it was ridiculous.
Everybody just has this new home on this farm moon, this harvest moon, if you will. And then we're told, oh, the princess isn't dead. Did you think shooting her would kill her?
Well, let's see here. In that scene, this weird aura of light comes out of her. So honestly, that was not the most shocking thing you could tell me when you said she's still alive. It's like an ethereal spirit came out of her. Like she was more than just... And they even said prior to the assassination that she was kind of more than just like a normal princess. And now you're like, all right.
Yeah, and that's how it ends. That's the movie. Is they're like, we're gonna go out and find this princess, and the robot's
and
going
they're
to join us.
Take down Belisarius,
Yeah.
and they're gonna end his rule.
And none of that. I don't know. The Rebel Moon did not. It was not the hit Netflix wanted it to be.
No.
And so I don't know if they're gonna do part 3.
You gotta give them one thing. They spent some money on these movies.
They did.
Like the special effects.
Oh, the special effects are
when
great.
they're going at normal speed are really great.
The special effects are great. The movie looks great. The production design, the costumes, the feel of the movie artistically is great. It's just when you get to the narrative and the dialogue and some of the directorial choices and the pacing. The pacing is a big problem. I should not be able to sum up the plot of this movie in as much time with as much detail as I did in an episode of Acolyte. But I can, and I did, and you just heard me do it.
This is the next step closer. Zack Snyder becoming the next Michael Bay. Like, every movie he makes, he's closer and closer to Michael Bay. And watching this movie, I got Transformer vibes, where you're like, okay, it looks cool, and the fight scenes look cool, but the narrative and the structure of the movie is just such dog shit that it doesn't matter how it looks because it's just not good.
The look is
and that's kind of what this was, because, it looked great.
But that's it.
I was blown away by this special effects.
That's all there is. There's just the look. You know what I would want to do with this movie? Have it recut, take all the dialogue out, and set it as like a space opera to music. And it's just like, you put on Pink Floyd, Dark Side of the Moon, see how it syncs up. Because I think that would be a better experience. Because honestly, the story is extremely milquetoast. There's almost nothing to it. Then you have this production design that's really cool to look at. It's really cool to look at, which is much more than I can say for The Acolyte.
Oh, yes. Night and day.
And yet, I can't find myself saying that this is dramatically better than The Acolyte. The only thing that makes this better than The Acolyte is that this has the decency to not call itself Star Wars. You can tell it really wants to be Star Wars, but it never calls itself Star Wars. It doesn't try to call itself Star Wars. It's associatable, Rebel Moon, Star Wars. You get kind of the same flair.
Yeah.
But it doesn't call itself Star Wars. It's not Galaxy
and like
Battle.
you said, it is such a blatant ripoff of both Star Wars and Dune, because instead of spice, it's grain, and you're like, okay. And both of them have the Galactic Empire that's evil, and none of them have Ed Skrein's haircut, though. The Noble's haircut, that is still the worst thing I've ever seen, and whoever designed that needs to be fired, because that is horrible.
Well, I still love, we just lauded the look of it, but I do love that when he gets out of the cocoon, he has like this big matrix thing plugged into the back of his head.
Thank you.
And it looks like he has a prosthetic because it's supposed to look like his head is cut open and this plug is in his head. But as a result, it looks like he has this giant lump on the back of his head.
Yeah.
You're just like, is that going to be there all movie? No, it's not going to be there by the end of the scene.
I'm glad you brought that up, though, because that is a third movie that they totally ripped off. Because when I saw that, I was like, Jesus, that is a Matrix head jack thing that they had. Nope, it's the way he healed himself in his chrysalis.
Yeah, what is happening?
It's so dumb. All right, folks. Well, I would say, should we grade this as an individual or look at them as one movie, because they really are technically a movie?
For the first one, my grade was I for incomplete.
Yeah.
And so I didn't feel like I could grade it properly without seeing part 2. Now, having seen part 2, I kind of have to grade them together. And it's like a C-. They're not the worst thing you've ever seen, but you can do far better with your time than watching these movies.
No, I agree. And I was gonna say C or C-, because once again, we still can't technically, because it was an open-ended story still. Like, it still should really have, as much as we don't want a part 3, it's probably going to get a part 3. I don't know what kind of deal Netflix has going on with Zack Snyder, and I am curious. This movie, I looked it up, the production budget, they said it was around $160 million. So, in the scheme of things, that's not crazy nowadays for a movie like this, especially the way Netflix is doing them. It maybe made enough in viewership to warrant it. But I'll probably be the same as you at a C-, just because, once again, it's good to look at. But it just had absolutely nothing underneath its bones.
Good to look at, not as much fun to watch.
No.
And that's not great. It's not
No,
great. The fact
was
that I'm
not
thinking
great.
more of stills of each scene than I am of like one particular action beat that was good.
But like you said, I think the thing that saved is I watched it after the Acolyte.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
it's going to make anything look better.
I watched this instead of the Acolyte last night, and I was just, because I just couldn't. I just couldn't with the Acolyte. I was just like, I can't do this, man. Everything about this is bad. You found a way to put nepotism in Star Wars. We haven't even gotten to that part of the story yet.
No, I don't even want to talk about that.
No, I mean, that's going to be next
ladies
week.
and gentlemen. That is going to be next week. Oh, we got a big end to the Acolyte next week, which we can't. I know I can't wait for. So, ladies and gentlemen, we really hope you enjoyed it. That was episode 146 of NerdPod Generation. So, once again, if this is your first time listening to us, please go to nerdpodgen.com and make sure to like and subscribe both our podcast and our YouTube channel, because there's a lot of content here, folks, and a lot of great stuff to listen to. Make sure to come back next week. We're going to talk the final episode of the Acolyte. We were going to do Crisis and Infinite Earths 2.
Yeah.
So that's on our docket unless something changes between now and next week. And then the week after is going to be the big Deadpool Wolverine, so make sure you tie in for that. So, Al, who does our music and our art?
Our music is by Brendan Williams and James Connolly. Our art is by Kortney Howell. I am Alfred Judson.
And I'm Steve Taylor.
And until next week, friends and enemies, there will be more DC animation sensation.
Yes.
More quote-unquote Star Wars. Thank the gods. We will be done with it after next week. It will just be a bad memory instead of something horrible on the horizon.
Thank you. Thank you for that.
Until then,
All
have
right,
a great
folks.
week, friends and enemies.
Bye.